You know that classic trope you see in like almost every teen movie? It's the cool parent.
Oh, right. The one who just winks and tosses the kids the keys to the basement.
Exactly. The one who says, "Hey, I would rather you kids drink under my roof where it's safe."
Yeah, we have all seen it.
Right. You have probably seen it on screen or, maybe you even knew a parent like that growing up. But today we are looking at a story where that socially acceptable facade of the cool mom was actually a mask for something truly sinister.
It really was a nightmare.
We're talking about the shocking case of the Los Gatos Party Mom, Shannon O'Connor. She's this wealthy California mother who basically turned her home into a pandemic-era haven for teenage debauchery.
Hiding a really dark, highly calculated reality of exploitation and abuse.
Yeah, behind the facade of just being the fun parent. It's completely wild. Now, before we get into the heavy details of this case, I want to quickly ask you to please like, subscribe, follow, and turn on the notification bell to support the show.
It genuinely helps us bring you these deep dives every single week.
It really does. And real quick, a strict 15-second update on the Martin Stevens versus OpenAI matter. First, let me state clearly, this is not a lawsuit. We are currently in a voluntary quiet period at Martin's request.
Right.
We are hoping for a settlement, though we do not know if any progress has been made at this point. And most importantly, we can confirm that the dead man's switch has not been activated, which means Martin remains safe.
Okay, and with that covered, we need to turn our focus to the immense gravity of the situation in Los Gatos.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today's mission for this deep dive is to understand the staggering 35-year maximum sentence handed down to Shannon O'Connor.
Which is a massive sentence.
It is. And we are going to explore the harrowing victim impact statements that finally exposed her crimes to the world. And then we will examine the strict California social host laws designed to stop adults from, providing alcohol to minors in the first place.
To really understand how someone pulls off a scheme this massive, you have to look at the environment she exploited. I mean, this all escalated during the 2020 and 2021 COVID-19 pandemic.
Right, which was a time when teenagers were practically climbing the walls.
Exactly.
They were totally cut off from their normal social structures, their schools, their sports. There was this massive psychological void.
And into that void stepped Shannon O'Connor. She started throwing these elaborate parties for 14 and 15-year-olds. Specifically, her son's middle school and high school friends.
Wow, middle schoolers.
Yeah. And she wasn't just letting a few kids have some beers in the backyard. The scale of this operation was mind-boggling. She was renting out hotel rooms. She was booking vacation properties everywhere from Santa Cruz to Lake Tahoe.
Just bankrolling this entire operation.
Absolutely. And she supplied immense amounts of alcohol. Bottles of Fireball whiskey, vodka. And, chillingly, she was handing out condoms to these young teenagers.
Handing out condoms to 14-year-olds.
Wow.
Jeez. And, the level of intoxication she encouraged wasn't just, rebellious teens having a drink. It was lethal.
It was incredibly dangerous.
We were talking about young teens drinking until they were vomiting, passing out, and literally choking on their own vomit.
Yeah.
There was one specific incident that just highlights the sheer recklessness of her operation. A teenager suffered a concussion after falling off the back of O'Connor's SUV.
Oh, my God.
Right, during a high school parking lot joyride. And when the police showed up, she actually pretended to be the injured boy's mom to wave off the authorities.
That is just, wow.
Yeah, and then she dropped the severely injured boy at his actual home without a single word of explanation to his parents. And he later nearly drowned in his own family's bathtub.
That incident reveals a breathtaking level of deceit. I mean, she wasn't just passively facilitating danger. She was actively managing the cover-up.
Definitely.
What's fascinating here is how she built a psychological moat around these kids to maintain absolute control.
A psychological moat. I like that phrasing. But I am just stuck on how a middle-aged mom gets teenagers to completely shut out their own parents. Was she essentially operating like a cult leader?
That is actually a perfect analogy.
Like using gifts and secrets to create this us versus them mentality.
Yes, it was incredibly methodical grooming. She used Snapchat and relentless texting to establish deeply inappropriate, hypersexualized relationships with middle schoolers.
Through Snapchat?
Yeah, because by constantly messaging them, she became their primary confidant. She was isolating them from the actual parents. She would shower the girls with gifts, sometimes pretending they were from her son.
Wait, why would she do that?
Because she was trying to make him appear socially and sexually prolific. At one point, she actually gave a teenage girl A lacy thong.
A lacy thought. I mean, that is just deeply disturbing. She is completely shifting the baseline of what these kids think is normal behavior for an adult.
Precisely. And she actively pushed the boys to be sexually aggressive, and she pressured the girls into compliance.
It's sickening.
She created this toxic, closed-off ecosystem where she was the ultimate authority figure. But she operated under the guise of being their peer.
Right, the cool mom.
Exactly. And she weaponized their loyalty. She warned them that if they ever told their parents or the police, she would go to jail, and it would ruin everything for everyone. She essentially convinced them that the outside world was the enemy.
So, after leaving this massive trail of destruction, the authorities finally start closing in. How does someone who operated so brazenly defend herself when she's finally dragged into a court of law?
Well, that is where the trial becomes an incredible study in desperation. The prosecution's case, led by District Attorney Jeff Rosen and Deputy DA Joanna Lee, was absolutely formidable.
They weren't messing around.
Not at all. They charged her with a mountain of offenses: child endangerment, facilitating forcible sexual assault, and dissuading witnesses.
And to really understand the severity of those charges, we have to look at the New Year's Eve 2020 hot tub incident.
Yeah, that is the starkest example of her culpability.
It really is.
During this specific party, O'Connor literally stood by just outside the hot tub, while a teenage boy sexually assaulted a heavily intoxicated 14-year-old girl.
It's horrifying.
And this girl was so drunk, she was actively struggling to keep her head above water. She was practically drowning. And O'Connor just watched.
And there is another instance where she handed a condom to a boy and physically pushed him into a bedroom with a blackout drunk 14-year-old girl.
Yes.
And the girl later asked O'Connor, "Why did you leave me in there with him? You knew what he was going to do." So, knowing all that, what was the defense strategy?
Her defense attorney, Stephen Prokosky, put on this highly theatrical courtroom display. He was shouting, slamming his hand on the podium.
Sounds like a circus.
It was. At one point, he bizarrely referred to himself as a DA sandwich caught between the prosecutor's arguments.
Oh, wait, a DA sandwich? In a child abuse and sexual assault trial, that sounds insane. Why would a defense attorney act like that? Is that a deliberate strategy? Like, if the facts are terrible, you just create a distraction for the jury.
It is exactly that. When the evidence is airtight, defense attorneys will sometimes rely on absurdity or emotional theatrics to muddy the waters.
Right.
His core argument was to reframe O'Connor as just a wackadoo parent. He claimed she was simply trying to improve her son's social life during the extreme isolation of the pandemic.
A wackadoo parent. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and he argued that the district attorney was overcharging her just to create a sensational media narrative.
Yeah.
His main defense against the most serious charges was that while she may have provided the alcohol, she couldn't possibly have foreseen that the teens would actually get raped.
What?
He even went so far as to suggest the victims didn't resist because they didn't want to.
That is just textbook victim blaming. How can a defense attorney seriously argue she didn't know a sexual assault would happen when she's literally handing a condom to a boy and pushing him into a bedroom with a blackout drunk 14-year-old girl?
It's indefensible.
And it completely ignores the physiological reality of alcohol incapacitation. A blackout drunk teenager cannot consent or resist.
Right. And Deputy DA Joanna Lee systematically dismantled that defense. She didn't rely on theatrics at all. She used clinical, undeniable timelines.
Just stuck to the facts.
Exactly. Lee put up presentation slides listing every single instance where O'Connor put these kids in imminent danger. She proved O'Connor knew the risks perfectly well because she was supplying the liquor and watching them consume it until, as Lee phrased it, their wheels fell off.
Their wheels fell off.
Yeah, until their bodies completely gave out.
And the evidence of her knowing exactly what she was doing is overwhelming when you look at her digital footprint. When the police started investigating, she didn't act like a misunderstood, naive parent.
Not at all. Her Google searches are a masterclass in consciousness of guilt.
Yeah, tell them what she searched.
She was searching things like statute of limitations, California, and can I get prosecuted in California if I live in Idaho?
Because she was literally packing her bags to flee to Idaho.
Exactly. She actually moved to Idaho, and that is where the police finally caught up with her in 2021. And when they arrived to arrest her, they found 10 underage boys and 2 girls sleeping at her house.
You have got to be kidding me.
The pattern of behavior was entirely unbroken, even across state lines.
It's chilling. The legal mechanics of how she was cornered are fascinating, but you really feel the true weight of this case when we shift from the trial to the sentencing phase.
Absolutely.
After all those bizarre courtroom theatrics, she finally has to face the family she destroyed.
The emotional devastation left in her wake is the real core of this story. The victim impact statements delivered in court were absolutely gripping. You had young people and their parents finally reclaiming their power and confronting the person who systematically dismantled their lives.
The sheer bravery it takes to stand up in open court and look your abuser in the eye is just incredible. We have to share some of these statements because they illustrate the toll perfectly.
We really do.
There was Jane Doe 8 who stood there and said, "When the righteous walk in, the demonic will squirm." And she noted that while she felt confident delivering her statement, she watched O'Connor physically squirming in her seat, unable to hold eye contact.
Then you had her sister, Jane Doe 9, who took an entirely different but equally profound approach. She chose to publicly forgive O'Connor.
Wow, that takes strength.
It does. She made it clear she wasn't absolving her of the crimes, but she was taking back her own agency. She stated that this case did not define her, and that nobody could ever hurt her like that again.
And you can only imagine the complex layers of betrayal the parents felt. Patty Doe, a mother who actually traveled from Idaho wearing a leg brace, confronted O'Connor directly.
That was a powerful moment.
She talked about how she literally served O'Connor tea in her own home, thinking she was a nice person. She told the court, "I was fooled by that soft-spoken voice." And then she confronted O'Connor about the intense, vindictive harassment campaign, revealing that O'Connor had made 38 anonymous phone calls to her in a single day when the truth finally started coming out.
The fallout for these kids was severe and ongoing. Another victim's mother, Jane Doe 4's mom, shared that her daughter had to be placed in a residential treatment center for a severe drinking problem.
Oh, that is so sad.
A problem that she explicitly stated her daughter learned directly from Shannon O'Connor.
So after hearing all of this agony, all of this trauma that she intentionally orchestrated, O'Connor is given a chance to speak to the court.
Right.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because you might expect, after years in jail and a mountain of undeniable evidence, some shred of genuine accountability.
But the court heard the exact opposite. O'Connor's final statement to Judge Elizabeth C. Peterson was deeply bizarre.
Truly bizarre.
She started by claiming she wasn't making excuses, but then immediately launched into a litany of complaints and deflections. She blamed her husband for alleged abuse, which the judge explicitly noted was not supported by any credible evidence.
She actually took time during her sentencing for child abuse to thank an NBC reporter.
Yeah, Candace Nguyen.
Right, bizarrely claiming the reporter had uncovered issues in the narrative against her. She complained out loud about having no supporters in the courtroom, wondering where everyone was, before answering her own question by saying they were keeping away from her.
And then came the moment that actually drew audible scoffs from the entire courtroom. After claiming she had no sexual inclinations toward the minors, she paused and declared that she was the real victim of sexual abuse.
It is the ultimate display of narcissism, deflecting the pain of dozens of victims back onto herself in the final hour to play the martyr.
Judge Peterson saw right through the manipulation, though. Her reaction was definitive. The judge stated she was astounded by the strength of the victims, and she made a very specific, powerful point to change the narrative on the record.
Which was so important.
She refused to call the teens victims anymore. She officially referred to them as survivors.
I absolutely love that distinction, and she certainly didn't hold back on the sentence either.
No, she didn't. Judge Peterson handed down the absolute maximum sentence allowed by law: 35 years and 10 months in state prison.
Wow.
She noted how masterfully O'Connor had manipulated everyone around her: children, parents, police, using the kids as instruments in a scheme they were far too young to understand. Because of her actions, O'Connor is also now a registered sex offender for the rest of her life.
It's a massive sentence, and honestly, a necessary relief for that community. But it brings up a vital question for you as a listener. While O'Connor's case obviously sits on the most extreme predatory end of the spectrum, it forces us to look at the legal consequences for any parent who thinks letting kids drink at home is just a harmless rite of passage.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this case is a massive spotlight on California's social host laws. Historically, the legal system had a really hard time prosecuting adults for underage drinking parties.
Why was that?
Well, the old legal framework relied on personal responsibility. The assumption was that the act of drinking the alcohol, not the act of furnishing it, was the proximate cause of any injuries or accidents.
Right, so if you gave a teenager a beer and they crashed their car, the law essentially blamed the teenager, leaving the host totally off the hook.
Exactly. But in 2011, California amended Civil Code 1714 to bridge that exact legal gap. The amendment essentially stated that because minors don't have fully developed decision-making capabilities regarding alcohol, the adult who provides it assumes the liability.
That makes total sense.
It allows civil lawsuits against any adult who knowingly furnishes alcoholic beverages to minors at their residence, if that minor then leaves and causes an accident.
And it pairs directly with California's zero-tolerance law for underage drinking and driving.
Right.
For an adult, the legal blood alcohol concentration limit is 0.08%. But if you're under 21, it is just 0.01%. It is virtually zero. If a minor blows a .01, it results in an immediate mandatory 1-year suspension of their driver's license.
But the laws go even further at the local municipal level, which is incredibly relevant in this specific case.
Yeah, in Los Gatos.
The town of Los Gatos has its own strict social host ordinance. It's designed to empower neighbors and parents to call law enforcement when they suspect underage drinking, giving the police a formal, immediate course of action rather than just issuing a warning.
And the financial penalties in Los Gatos are steep. A first violation brings a $1,500 fine. Second and subsequent violations, that jumps to $3,000.
That is a lot of money.
Plus, the town can impose cost recovery fees. This means the host literally has to pay the hourly bills for the police officers, the fire department, and the ambulance services that have to respond to bring up the party.
And here's the mechanism that catches a lot of people off guard.
Yeah.
Under the Los Gatos ordinance, if a 17-year-old hosts a party where drinking occurs, the parents of that teen are held jointly responsible and subject to those fines.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, even if the parents were completely out of town and even if they had absolutely no idea the gathering was happening, the law demands that parents secure their alcohol and supervise their property.
So what does this all mean? It means the legal system is finally catching up to the psychological reality. The law now officially recognizes the immense cascading danger of party moms and party dads.
It's a huge shift.
It really is systematically dismantling that old, dangerous myth that it is safer if they drink at home under my roof. Because as we just saw with Shannon O'Connor, under the wrong roof, it is the most dangerous place a child could possibly be.
It really is. And this raises an important question for you to mull over as we wrap up. As a society, where is the exact line between giving a teenager the privacy and independence they need to grow and dangerously facilitating reckless, life-altering behavior?
It's a tough balance.
It is. And more importantly, how can communities, schools, neighbors, other parents, get better at spotting the subtle signs of a predator who hides behind the socially acceptable smiling mask of the cool parent before a tragedy like this occurs?
That is something every single parent and really every community member needs to be thinking about. Thank you for joining us on this heavy but incredibly important deep dive. Please remember to like, subscribe, share this conversation with anyone who needs to hear it, and turn on those notifications so you never miss an analysis. We will see you next time.